Welcome, Pisces, to your Mercury Retrograde Deep Dive Forecast. On February the 26th, Mercury in your sign goes retrograde through to March the 20th, inverting by 14 degrees through those 22 days. Mercury is all about communication, but also about precision. But what does it mean when it's in our own zodiac sign? Furthermore, Mercury is naturally detrimented in Pisces. Is that going to make it even more of a challenge over the next 3 weeks? I'm going to unpack all of this for you, sharing the event chart when Mercury exactly goes retrograde, because we need to be conscious of the other planetary influences beyond just Mercury's retrograde. And then we've got upcoming aspects forged during the time of the retrograde. And some of those are really quite exciting for you. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundel. A very warm welcome. If you've yet to subscribe to the channel, please do so now and help it to continue to thrive. By the end of the video, I will have summarized your financial, relationship, professional, and energetic prospects. Also, you get the opportunity to get my Survive and Thrive Mercury Retrograde Guide. So on the screen is your event chart specifically from your perspective. And you can see that although Mercury is in your zodiac sign, so is Venus, the planet of attraction and money. The North Node, very much to do with the karmic direction of us all collectively at the moment, urging us to be in touch with our more atmospheric and sensory instincts. And also, recently, for the last week, the sun, giving you more spark, drive, and focus. Now, just to let you know, on the 2nd of March, the feisty vibe of Mars is going to pitch up in your sign for 6 weeks. That's something to really look forward to. But Mars is a big part of the backdrop energy that will be threaded through this particular Mercury retrograde. Why is that? Well, Mars forges a square with Uranus, and you can see at 2740, that's pretty close to that fourth house cusp, very much to do with emotion. Whereas Mars is in a part of your situation that's much more psychological. You may have found over the last 5.5 weeks that you have encountered some ups and downs as far as your emotions are concerned. Sometimes feeling very raw, others perhaps a little tearful, and others very angry. And that's all because Mars in the 12th house, as it has been for you, even though it's in the dispassionate sign of Aquarius, has a tendency to rake up old debris, emotional issues that we think that we've dealt with, maybe to do with breakups, losses, accidents, those things that can have quite the impact on us. And I just feel because the first house energies you have here is all about you demonstrating your individuality, your dynamism, what makes you unique. That's all really strong. But if there's something in terms of your own thinking or energy that's preventing you from really moving forwards, that Mars square Uranus could give you a lot of adrenaline, but also see you a little bit reactive in ways that may even surprise yourself. So just be conscious of that because, it'd be easy to think that any obstacles you have is all about Mercury's retrograde. The other aspect to tell you about is that you have a gorgeous position of Jupiter in the fifth house. Jupiter is exalted in the sign of Cancer, but so is Venus in your own sign. And she's been pushing you to feel absolutely gorgeous of late. But that link between Venus and Jupiter is delicious and suggests that if you feel good about yourself, particularly around your creative talents, often very strong, but also about your sense of attractiveness and also what would make you someone that other people would be drawn to, perhaps from a romantic viewpoint. But there is a more challenging influence in the sign of Cancer, and it's the moon. Now that's ironic because the moon uh, is domiciled here. It's its favorite location, but it's in a very tense right angle to the position of Saturn. So if you're thinking or working on at the moment anything that's very dynamic, you're thrusting forwards and hope to do so even more when Mars pitches up in your sign on the 2nd, that has got something to do with speculation, that square between Saturn and the moon could, in some ways, just take the color and gorgeousness off Venus's trine with Jupiter if you let it. And that's because Saturn in the second house could see you start to doubt your quality, your value, or it could be around your finances that you're worrying, and that can actually inhibit the creative purpose you have. But if you do find yourself retracing your steps on something you started when Mercury moved into your zodiac sign, don't beat yourself up about it. Whenever Mercury is retrograde in a mutable sign, as yours is, that inherently is about flexibility. But that's your ace because you can just lean into the atmosphere of situations. You can take soundings almost with your intuition of how things are going. So whether something you're doing is gaining traction or people are tuning into it or not, you don't always have to have a conversation. And because of that, that can be very protective for you. But I do want you to know that by the 28th of February, Venus has moved forwards and Mercury's reversed backwards, and they're together in a conjunction. And that's one of astrology's most lovely collaborations. Venus in your sign exalted, very much about style, beauty, charm, allure. Mercury, uh, flexing, atmospheric, perhaps can say things in quite an artful way. If you have got an artistic streak, and a lot of Pisces people have, you can express that talent with aplomb. But also, if you're chatting to someone you like, just because Mercury's retrograde, it doesn't mean to say that they're not going to warm to you. They're not going to get what you're saying. We can't see Mercury retrograde in binary terms, and yet a lot of people do. I had one person wrote to me once, I want to have a reading with you, but I won't do it while Mercury's retrograde. Well, Mercury retrograde can actually give us a lot of insights to alter our approach in a more appropriate way. So sometimes issues will come up that we can improve our posture on. At other times, if we're really in touch with what we want to do, Mercury retrograde won't show up from what we do. It will much more show up from what happens beyond us. So it's not all about our control. So that could be, for example, the things that Mercury does impact, like technological systems, industrial strikes at airports or ports. It can be to do with obviously ticketing, uh, any kind of technology, and of course, everyday conversation. So it is going to be important for you to try to be as concentrated as possible in what you say. But Mars moving into your sign on the 2nd of March is such an asset, but just know that Mars squaring Uranus could suddenly, from nowhere, if you encounter any blockages, just see you in perhaps an uncharacteristic way show a lot of emotion, and it can just froth up from within you. And obviously, Mars in the chatty Aquarius, it could be you could express how you feel. A lot of words can come out quite quickly and quite intensely if you encounter that frustration. But just be aware you need to work on your value. So even if you've got great ideas developing, keep putting it out there. How much you're worth attracting the right opportunities, the right people, and the right value for the quality of your services, because eventually it will come your way. Now, on the 3rd of March, we do have a total lunar eclipse. It's the only total lunar eclipse of this year. It's in your opposite sign. There are three eclipses this year between Virgo and Pisces, or sorry, three more in the series. Got another one late in August and one in 2027 early on. But what this particular lunation does is ask you to think about how you're connecting to people. Because at times, when we've got a lot of planets in our own sign, we may be very singular in our approach, particularly when Mars turns up for you. And that can be such a strength, but of course, it can be a little bit of a weakness if people think we're so self absorbed that we're a little bit uncaring about how they feel. And that total lunar eclipse just asks you to find that balance between what you need to do for you and your connections to others in the following 6 months. But the 7th of March sees a Cazimi. Those happen 6 times a year with Mercury, where the Sun applies to Mercury, in this case, the retreat in Mercury. Therefore, it's an inferior conjunction. But the Sun still amplifies the resonance, the warmth, the gorgeousness of the Sun applies to Mercury and brings out its best qualities. So in your sign, it can be compassion. It can be thinking about or feeling how people are without always, as I mentioned before, actually having to talk it through. But if you are someone who's very intuitive, even psychic or perceptive, working counseling or healing, or as a psychic, a life coach, any of those arenas, you could really thrive with that combination. But then on the 9th, Jupiter, your traditional ruler, which forges that gorgeous link with Venus at the start of the month, that mutual receptivity. It's at it again, but this time with the retreating Mercury. And that's a lovely influence because Mercury in the first house is really pushing you to think about what makes you unique and have the confidence in it. And then Jupiter in that fifth house energy and exalted, despite its retrograde, is just really encouraging you to hold that charge, that fabulous energy that you possess. But on the 15th, the advancing Mars in your sign by then meets the retreating Mercury. It's going to give you uh, some real strength of character. You know, if you do really want to punch across your ideas with assertion, Mars, you want to make clear that you're very invested in what you do. And what I would say to that, sometimes if we are doing something that's more creative, or we have to go out on a little bit of go out of ourselves in order to do something new or fresh, that does take a lot of courage. And not everybody will be supportive, not everyone will get what you're doing. So that combination of Mars, the strength and durability and drive, and the thinking and nimbleness of Mercury is a good one, but someone could see you perhaps as being a little bit dogmatic if you're unyielding in your viewpoint. And then towards the end of Mercury's retrograde on the 19th, it doesn't quite come into an exact conjunction with the North Node in your sign, but a fated conversation, I think, is entirely possible at that time. So let's just summarize it. So, from a relationship viewpoint, you are in a phase of the year when the most important relationship, I think, is with yourself, particularly around your talents. But that link between Venus and Jupiter is delicious if there is somebody you're connecting to. But if it's somebody who really gets your artistry and flair and is very much your cheerleader, I don't feel this Mercury retrograde will stop that situation. But on the whole, you are focused more on what you want to do for you, and it's going to be that total lunar eclipse which just flags up to you, hello, we're here, whether it's your friends or family or a partner. But this is a time for you to really focus on what defines you, the individual, and an incredibly important phase. There may be the need to rethink, to reset, or to be flexible. You might not be able to go in a straight line with an idea you've got. It might not quite gain the traction. So you may have to rethink in some ways. That's entirely ordinary or quite usual with Mercury retrograde in our own zodiac sign. When it comes to your finances, you do have Saturn in the second house now. So over the next couple of years, discipline will be required, but also Saturn will help you to formulate a stronger and more robust uh, idea of what's acceptable or not. You're going to want to really stand up your value. Good for you. So, but it is squaring with the moon in your fifth house. So I don't think it's a great time to be too free and easy with resources, to be honest. And then in terms of your energy, I think that could be at times a little bit nervy, a bit edgy. But if you really feel very passionately about something that's important to you and you want to put all of your soul purpose into that, This is a supreme opportunity, even with the Mercury retrograde, but particularly with Mars arriving in your sign. So it's quite ironic that Mars does that on the 2nd of March. It's very supportive to you. It can make you perhaps a bit impatient if you do encounter some obstacles or delays, but it will give you the endurance to bounce back and keep working towards what's really important for you. So I think you could encounter some challenges. Perhaps some of the challenges is working on you concentrating on what you really want to do and not being too concerned with peripheral things and just really having the faith to keep going with that. Now, on the screen on the left is your in-depth forecast for March. Please check that out if you've yet to do so. And on the right screen is your chance to download my Survive and Thrive Mercury Retrograde booklet, which, if I say so myself, is absolutely brilliant. Please take advantage of my unique horoscope reports offer. You can order your 12-month forecast, but also your life roadmap report, totally unique to you. If you apply Astro 26 at the checkout, you'll get 50% off. If you'd like to know more about your karmic soul journey through Draconic astrology, you can order the same package, but apply at the checkout Draco 26. Thank you.